So just a couple of hours ago, I sat down with Robert Haynes from the Game House, and we recorded an episode of his podcast, Talking TSM. You know, it's just like a TSM podcast he does every week. It's pretty cool. And it was really, really fun. I mean, he seems like a really cool guy. You guys should definitely go check it out. The episode should be out by now. I feel like me and him share a lot of the same, philosophies and outlook on esports, on content creation, on business, on this space in a lot of different ways. I definitely hope to do, more stuff with him and the Game House team in the future. But we talked about all different kinds of different TSM topics, and just having another person to bounce ideas off of and everything really got my mind flowing, and it just made me think of so many different TSM topics that I want to talk about for videos and narratives that I want to start, generating and creating, and storylines I want to talk about headed into the new season. So, all over the internet, there's a ton of takes and expectations about how the 2022 season is going to go for TSM. We're going to continue to talk about that stuff, but I wanted to look a little bit further ahead into the future. I wanted to look into the next offseason, the offseason ahead of the 2023 season, where depending on how this season goes, and if this year doesn't go right in some ways, I really think this next offseason could maybe be the end of TSM as we know it. And I know it sounds really, really dramatic, and maybe that's over the top, and it is, but hear me out. Let me make my case, and then let me know what you guys think as well. Definitely drop a like if you guys do enjoy it. I would appreciate it so much. Subscribe, stay up to date on all my latest content, and consider checking out the first link in the description below for the new merch we just dropped a couple days ago. We finally started selling some stuff. It's really, really cool and exciting to see, people actually buying merch from me. That's still just like a crazy, crazy feeling, and I'd appreciate it a ton if you guys at least checked it out. I think it's some, pretty cool stuff, and it's an awesome way to help support my content and my channel. With that being said, let's get right into this. And one of the things we talked about in that podcast, and what I want to talk about in this video, is Spica and how much he means to TSM at this point, and why I'm a little bit worried about the future of TSM. So obviously Spica is in a contract season with TSM, and I know Robert was talking a little bit how TSM had this crazy offseason where they made all these changes, dropped all these bombs. We got this big announcement of Tactical coming in. We have these 2 new Chinese players. Spica's talked about wanting to play in the LPL before. Well, we're bringing the LPL to him. We have Chowie, we have Kaido, we have Shenny. We're bringing up these young Chinese prospects that a couple years from now, they could be absolute monsters. They could be absolute beasts. And Robert was saying how he was like, well, the next thing I was waiting for was, hey, here's this contract extension we just signed Spica to. But obviously that never happened. Spica is still in that contract year. So that is something to worry about. Is Spica going to re-sign with TSM? Is he going to be on TSM past the 2022 season? And there's a couple of reasons why I think he may potentially be leaving. Again, it's obviously very, very contingent on how this year goes. If Kaido and Shenny turn out to be absolute beasts, if this TSM team makes it to Worlds, if they do good at Worlds, Spica's probably going to stay. But there is a real opportunity that this TSM team is maybe the 4th, maybe the 5th best team in the LCS, doesn't go to Worlds, and then, where would that leave Spica and where would that leave TSM? So we know Spica is a very ambitious guy. We know he has high goals. We know he has high aspirations. He's already talked about how he wants to go to the LPL because he sees that as like the pinnacle of League of Legends. He wants to go to the highest level. He doesn't want to waste his youth. He doesn't want to waste his prime. He wants to go where the best League of Legends is being played. He wants to go where he has the best chance of proving himself, finding success, creating a legacy, and potentially even winning Worlds. And if the TSM of a couple years ago that was competing for LCS titles all the time, making it to Worlds all the time, being really, really close to making it out of groups at Worlds, sometimes taking games off some of the best teams in the world, not consistently, but occasionally, I think that team could make a pitch to Spica, like, hey man, we know you want to play at the highest level, but we think we can create the highest level of League of Legends in your own backyard. We have amazing players. We think you fit into an amazing team. Let's see what we can do. But all of a sudden, this TSM team that is consistently not making it to Worlds, they've made it to Worlds once in the last, 4 years, 3 years, whatever. This is not a team that can make that pitch to Spica. And now they're starting a rebuilding process. After 3 or 4 years of not finding success, now they want to rebuild. To me, that doesn't seem like that fits into Spica's future plans. Again, a guy who doesn't want to waste his prime, a guy who doesn't want to waste his youth, a guy who wants to, accomplish something more. is he really going to, especially coming off the back of an MVP season, and who knows what kind of season he's going to have in 2022, is that a guy who's going to be on board for a rebuild? That doesn't necessarily, make a ton of sense to me. Again, that all very, very much so depends on how the 2022 season goes for TSM. But then also understanding that TSM, they were once this organization that, could pitch to you that, hey, we will build you into a bigger star. We will, grow your socials like no one else can. We will make you more money off sponsorships and partnerships and just your overall brand than any other team in the world can do. The United States is an awesome place to do stuff like that, and TSM was the biggest team. They had the most reach. They had the biggest fan base, and TSM still has some of those advantages. But the gap is absolutely closing. 100 Thieves, TL, Cloud9, looking outside of League of Legends, some teams like FaZe and some of these other teams are bridging that gap between the advantage that TSM has in terms of creating star power. And could Spica not be as big of a star or make as much money or, be as popular or as famous or whatever on some other team? Could he still do that on TL, who has one of his good friends, Bjergsen, on the team, and potentially, depending on how this year goes for them, could TL look to replace Santorin with a guy like Spica? I know I talked a little bit about Cloud9 and how LS doesn't really seem that high on Blabber. Could Spica potentially go to a team like Cloud9 in the future? I don't know. But it seems to me like those teams could potentially offer more competitive rosters over the next couple of years. Similar, if not more money. Cloud9's been throwing around some money recently. TL is always down to throw around some money. And still offer him as much star power, still offer him as much exposure, and maybe a better opportunity of reaching some of his international goals like Worlds, like MSI, like all this stuff. So, again, this is all very, very forward-looking. We have no idea how the future is going to look for TL, C9, TSM, any of these teams, or what LPL offers Spica is going to get, or how any of that's going to go. And partly it's going to depend on how good Spica himself does, but Spica is going to have a lot of pressure and expectations this year in this TSM roster. He is the linchpin between Huni Tactical and the Chinese players, making this all come together. He's going to have to do some, communication, some translation, all that stuff. But also, he is the guy at TSM now. There is no double lift here. There is no Bjergsen here. He is the face. And that comes with, a whole nother level of pressure and expectations. It's one thing to be the guy in the background, helping people out, but it's a different thing to actually be, the front of the wolf pack or whatever. There's just going to be a new spotlight on Spica this year, and I think he's going to shine. I think he's going to do great. I'm a big fan of Spica. When I start to look around at some of his future options, I don't really see many reasons other than loyalty, or this is what he knows, or he likes it here, reasons of why TSM would necessarily stay with, why Spica would necessarily stay with TSM. And then that kind of gets me to the point of what then would happen to TSM? We know TSM of the past is having all these massive, massive faces and having all this massive, massive success. Not only did they have our favorite players, our favorite content creators, but they won a lot. And all of a sudden, they're starting to lose our favorite players. They're starting to lose our favorite content creators, and they're not winning? What's going to be left for TSM? If Spica does leave, who's going to be the face of the League of Legends roster? Is it going to be Tactical? Is it going to be Shenny? Is it going to be Kaido? I don't know. And I know people have been making some comparisons to, the early stages of the downfall of like CLG. Is TSM the next CLG? I don't think they are. I think part of CLG's, issues were a lot more deep rooted, and they had a ton of management issues. And, I don't really see TSM and Reggie going down that track, but I could see this, being the beginning of the end of TSM being the dominant team in North America, the overwhelmingly successful team in terms of fan base engagement, all this stuff. TSM's still going to make really, really high quality content. They're still going to do a lot of things right, but at the end of the day, part of the reason why they have so many fans is that they've had the best players, they've had the most interesting players, and they've won a lot. And again, as new fans are coming in and as old fans kind of get tired of the same BS, the same losing our favorite players, losing our favorite faces, and not replacing them with anything. Right now, they have an absolute face of the franchise on and off the rift in terms of Spica. But if they lose him too, I would be really, really worried about the future of TSM in the short term and in the long term. So that's just kind of what I'm thinking. That's what I wanted to talk about in this video. But that's pretty much it, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below. Do you think Spica should stay with TSM? Do you think he's gonna stay with TSM? And if he leaves, would you be worried about TSM, or do you think they're gonna be just fine? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Consider checking out the merch. First link in the description below. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then.